For far too long, the right-wing media machine in Milwaukee has spewed their lies and gone unchecked. Join me, Jason Lawrence, as I expose the truth behind all things political in the state of Wisconsin, by using those things that conservatives hate most: humor, wit, and those pesky little things known as facts. This is Milwaukee Grassroots TV. Let's go. Who writes our laws? Legislators, right? Elected officials who promise to be the voice of the common person. They hold listening sessions and town hall meetings with their constituents in their home district. They take that feedback and they go back to their office at the state or federal levels and they write that legislation for the betterment of all society. Well, that's how we'd like to believe our laws are written. But the truth of the matter is that that's not even close to the way it actually happens. My name is Jason Lawrence, and this is Grassroots TV, where we expose the truth behind all things political in the state of Wisconsin. My guest today is Dr. Keith Roberts, and he, along with many others, has come to the conclusion that who's actually behind some of our most ominous laws is a group that calls itself ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Is that right, Keith?
That's completely true, Jason. And I want to just talk a little bit about my background to get to understand why I became so interested in this. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, and in 1996 I left, and I took a position in a different state, and I returned back in 2008. I left just as the W-2 was being implemented in Wisconsin, and other things were going on, but I didn't know that because I was busy somewhere else. I came back in 2008 and was doing international consulting around the world, in Asia and the Pacific. And in 2010, I was in China. I returned from China to just in time for the Walker administration to start implementing their Act 10. And I was stunned. I was just stunned. I couldn't believe that this progressive state that I grew up in had become so regressive. But I look at it in the context of not only Wisconsin, but in the context of the world. The American Legislative Exchange Council is not only American corporations, but it's international corporations that write the legislation for us here in Wisconsin. It's amazing and stunning.
So this is not a lobbying firm. They don't meet legislators at their office and say, we'd like this, we have an idea for a bill, we'd like you to write it and pass it.
Oh, no. What it is it's a group of, it's a corporate group, many corporations, and they belong to task forces. And then the task forces are where the legislation is written. Now, they say that it's the industry and the legislators working together to develop the materials. But in fact, that's not what happens. The legislation gets written and approved by the corporations. Now, they have a committee. They have committees of legislators and corporate leaders who meet, but no model legislation from ALEC ever moves out of ALEC without having approval of the corporations. So, and it's interesting the way they do it.
So none of the legislators come there with their own bills and present them.
Oh, no.
To ALEC. So well, the business, she's saying the representatives and the businesses, so the large businesses decide who the representative is, and they send them to these ALEC-sponsored events. I mean, where do they meet? Do they come?
Well, they usually meet in resorts, resort areas. You know, like in Arizona or Florida, or sometimes they will meet in five-star hotels in urban areas too, like Cleveland or Oklahoma City.
So they invite legislators there from state levels and federal levels?
No, just the state level.
Just the state level.
The state levels, okay. Because what they found out is the state level legislators are really cheap. They're easy to buy. They can, for the price of a couple airline tickets and a weekend in a nice hotel with free meals and some ball games and things, they can buy the whole state.
So who pays for their trip to go to these conventions?
Well, it's an interesting thing. What they do like for instance here in Wisconsin, they'll have they have a steering committee, an Alec steering committee, and the Alec steering committee is like Senator Voss is on it, and Robin Voss is on it, and they have also a lobbyist from Coke Industries. You know, he's not. It's a lobbyist representing Coke Industries and some of the others. But that lobbyist and Voss and some others, their job is to get money from corporations to give scholarships. Imagine this. Scholarships.
Like educational scholarships for their college student children to go to school?
No. They get scholarships that will pay for the airline tickets and the hotel and the registration for the legislators.
No, just for them, or can they invite maybe family?
Oh, their families go too. Yeah.
So they can make it a vacation.
They can make it a vacation.
So they can say, hey, we're going to be in Orlando this year, or Salt Lake City, Utah, for a week.
Yeah.
At this 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
Bring the family.
Bring the family. Bring the family.
Now, so that's paid for, but who pays for the legislators' membership?
Well, the legislators' membership is either paid by the legislators themselves or it's charged to their expense accounts. So some of our legislators in Wisconsin have charged their membership, but their membership is phenomenally cheap. I believe it's $100 for 2 years. You know, but for that $100, they not only get the trips, but what they really get is they get this legislation. It's like going to college and having somebody else write your term papers. It is plagiarism in its most gross form.
So are there some bills that have passed recently in Wisconsin that are Alec sponsored that you know of?
Oh yeah. In fact, if you go to the Center for Media and Democracy's website, they can go right down the list and show you every one of the bills that has been resulted from Alec sample.
Are they some of the most maybe ominous ones, like voter ID,
the voter
gun
ID,
laws, or gun
the
rights,
voter ID, the Castle, any of the Castle doctrine. You know, the one that just gets under my skin was the first one that they did, the tort reform one, which restricted access to records of nursing homes. Which means that, you know, like if you have a loved one who dies in a nursing home and you suspect there's anything wrong or there was anything wrong, you can't get into records. And see, those are the kinds of things.
Who would that benefit? I mean, so if my grandmother was in a nursing home, and she was under their care, and then she passed away, and I wanted to do some digging and to find out the records, who was on duty, what was happening then. Now I can't get that without pulling a lot of teeth. Who does that benefit?
Well, it benefits the nursing homes. You know, I confronted
the for-profit nursing homes.
The for-profit nursing homes. I confronted Mary Lasich about that, and she said, listen, these are small businesses. They can't be troubled by unnecessary lawsuits. So we're protecting them. And the thing that's so frustrating about it is that they have co-opted the Republican Party. I don't believe that the Republican Party of 30 years ago would ever do this.
Now, are there any Democrats in Alec?
Not now.
Have there?
There have been. Sure.
1 or 2?
There have been. Oh, in the past there have been. Yeah.
It's all right wing now.
It's all right wing now. But even, for instance, Annette Polly Williams, African American legislator from the inner city, who was responsible for getting the voucher stuff passed. Vouchers are Alec legislation. Anything
that's very recent, because just now in the state of Wisconsin they increased voucher spending per pupil. I think it was K through 8 maybe. Was increased $750 per student, and they actually wanted more, and that was a compromise.
Yeah.
And they increased student spending for K through 12 or public at $150.
Yeah.
But it's it's 6 times, 5 or 6 times as much for the voucher school students. And you're saying that's an Alec proposition?
That's Alec. That's all Alec stuff. Anything that moves any activity from the public sector to the private sector is part of this free market initiative, which is Alec's point.
So which politicians in the state of Wisconsin belong to Alec?
Well, the majority of the Republican politicians, all of the big names that we know here, Alberta Darling, Robin Voss, all of those do, and a good percentage of the assembly too. Now you take somebody like Jeff Stone, who's my assemblyman. He went to an Alec meeting in 2009. That was the last time he took Alec money to go anywhere. But 2009 was the Alec meeting where they all voted on the voter ID legislation. So the voter ID legislation that he submitted in 2011 was a result of the Alec 2009 meeting. Now he's denied that, but I'm a retired university vice president. I know when a student is lying about about who wrote their term papers, and certainly.
Is it not just a coincidence that in the last 2 years, many states now have new, more restrictive voter ID laws?
All of the
and they're
laws
all coming from politicians. No, in essence, that are Alec connected.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is not an accident, and nobody can possibly believe that the legislation that's in Florida, Indiana, Wisconsin, all of the legislation that comes from these places where you have Republican dominated state houses, they're all the same. They're all the same. And they,
so in essence, that they go to these Alec conventions. Say I'm a legislator from Wisconsin. I go to this Alec convention. And we go to different committees, and I go in our room. This one's on voter ID. And the businesses present this bill pretty much already pre-written.
Okay.
And it just has, fill in your state here.
Well, you can discuss it and talk about it and adjust it a little bit if you want. I mean, that's what they say. But what you take back is a boilerplate. Fill in the state here. And one of the legislators I think it was in Florida, forgot to take out the heading that said Alec sample legislation when she proposed the bill.
So they didn't even do much editing.
They don't do it. Yeah. I mean, it's the worst kind of plagiarism. But the most important thing is it makes the legislators lazy, because they don't have to listen to the people who elected them, and they have gerrymandered the districts in such a way that they don't have to run against anybody. I mean, you take some of these districts in Waukesha County. If you're a Republican, you will win. That's it, because people just blindly vote for the party. They don't understand what is really behind this, And it's not good. The thing that's so funny about it is, and what's so frustrating for me is, it's not good for the rank and file Republican voter. These things are not good for them. And you could see that when they start talking about the vouchers upstate, where everybody was happy if you were doing it to Milwaukee or Racine. But now, when you start doing it to their districts, it's
now all these
different.
Superintendents and then the parents of the public school students, because you just have public schools up there in rural areas.
Yeah.
Why are you taking our money away, or at least not increasing our funding, but you're going to increase voucher school funding fivefold or sixfold?
Yeah. Well, to give you an idea of how disingenuous these folks are, is they initiated the voucher discussion as a way to help poor students in the inner city have options in addition to the public schools. In 2011, they raised the income limit right now, and it's going to be even more here, but as of last year, if you were a family of four making $70,000, you could qualify for nearly a $7,000 voucher for your private school. And what happened...
Can that be a religious institution?
Oh yeah, it can be a religious institution. And
so our tax dollars can go to somebody who's making $69,999 and they want to send their child to a private religious school.
Well, not only that. What happened when they raised that, no new people joined the voucher. Everybody who took that were people who were already sending their kids to schools because they could afford it. It wasn't helping the poor people. The way you help the poor people is you don't give the money to the rich people. You have the money available for more participants.
Their argument on their side would be, though, that having more vouchers creates competition.
Well, it doesn't create competition because what you have is you have public schools that are evaluated. If your school isn't doing well, you can get a voucher and send that student to a private school that isn't being evaluated. I mean, it is.
So they don't have the same testing or the same requirements.
Oh, they don't have any. They don't have any oversight. They don't have any oversight.
Can they, as a voucher school, if it's a private voucher school, if a student is acting up or not meeting standards, do they have to keep them, or can they kick them back to the public schools?
Well, they can kick them back to the public school, of course, but then they have to give the money back. The thing about it is, it's a bad idea, but it's an Alec idea. And whenever you see anything that privatizes or restricts any citizen's rights, all sorts of legislation that cuts down your ability to sue, that's all Alec legislation.
Well, let me play the opposite. Some people might say, so what? Businesses are people too. They have the right to try and lobby a legislator and say this is what we think is good because we employ people. We employ hundreds or thousands of people. Coke Industries has, I don't know how many businesses and subsidiaries. Walmart has how many employees. So some might say, so what? A business is a person. They have the right to influence a legislator's vote.
No, a business isn't a person. And we don't even have to talk about that. I mean, a business isn't a person, and if you think a business is a person, then there's another discussion that has to go on with you and your psychiatrist. Okay, but
that would mean that you would get, if you're a business owner or in a business, you would get two votes. You could vote for yourself, Dr. Keith Roberts, as a citizen, and you could get a second vote as president or CEO Keith Roberts of Roberts Incorporated.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Right. See, but the thing is, what has happened is voters don't have power, money has power. The majority of us pay taxes, okay? The 1% that control all this, they pay the politicians. And Alec is the place where the politicians get their marching orders from the 1% who buy them. They're purchased. And our state legislators are lazy.
Let's say your state legislator is Jeff Stone out of Greendale. In fact, he lives in Greendale, probably not too far from where you live.
No, yeah.
Would you say that he listens to his constituents?
He would say that. I don't think he would listen to his constituents on small things. I would say if there was something that had to do with a incident around Greendale or something that the state could help with, he would.
Let's look at the voucher issue.
But I mean, there's nobody. I mean, I saw no signs in Greendale that said
vouchers here, please.
Vouchers here, please.
In fact, it was quite the opposite. They had a listening session on the vouchers at Greendale High School, and it was probably 75% that spoke were against the expansion of vouchers at the high school. And I don't know if Jeff Stone was there or not. He's probably not on that committee, but he lives in Greendale, and he's for the expansion of vouchers. And if he would have been there, he could have taken the feedback that maybe this is not what my constituents want, because it takes away funding from public schools and a public institution, and it privatizes it.
Sure. And the other thing is he's the guy who proposed the voter ID. I mean, the people in our district, the most I could probably say is they are very neutral about voter ID. That's not an issue that people talk about in this district. I mean, they're concerned about other things.
Why do you think the businesses in Alec would want to restrict people's voting rights, or at least?
They want to restrict the voting rights because minorities and students and some of the elderly, not all of them, tend to vote for Democrats. See, if everybody voted, then things would be different, because generally the population, even though the population in general is conservative, they are more liberal than the people who had been voting. And so if you can suppress the minority vote, you can suppress the influence of the left on the electorate.
The last election we just had in the state of Wisconsin, the presidential election in the fall of 2012, more people voted Democratic in the state than voted Republican, which is why Obama won, and also Tammy Baldwin. But yet, in districts that are gerrymandered, the Republicans all got in, and in the state senators and state legislatures like Jeff Stone and so on. And now it seems that they think, well, how we're losing the game. How can we rig it so we can win or start to win again?
Yeah.
Or win on a broader level instead of just our tiny little pockets.
And of course, the other thing is Paul Ryan has to leave his seat some way. He has to, because he is in that corner with the moneyed politicians. His legislation that he proposed is all legislation that was written by the Heritage Foundation. So he's not a representative. As much as he's got a nice smile and he works out every day, there's a lot of people who work out every day that aren't going to be people that I would trust in the future.
Just before I got here, I jogged 2.5 miles and took a shower, but I didn't post that I jogged 26 miles and won a marathon.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
I'm a little honest about it.
You jogged 2.5
2.5 miles. And
2.5 miles instead of that's 26 miles in Paul Ryan.
That is, if you do the Paul Ryan math, you just times it times 10,
yeah.
and there you go.
Yeah. So do you really want to trust that guy with your budget? And the grassroots people, the citizens, the people who want a good quality of life, they're busy trying to bring home enough money to pay their rent or to pay their mortgage or to put food on the table. And they can't think of all of these things. And so they listen to the sound bites because they're busy. And the sound bites are more and more untrue.
And we're busy, and that's our class, it's my class, and we're busy working and living and dying and going from one job to your second job to a Little League game to a soccer match. And we catch what news we can in the car. And unfortunately, here in the greater Milwaukee area, if you turn the news on, it's right-wing conservative talk is all it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to do here is present a different viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not necessarily just progressive or just liberal, but just viewpoints that you are not going to hear, at least in talk radio. It used to be a three-legged stool where you would have your retirement, and you would have your Social Security, and you would have your own savings.
Yeah.
And now the big businesses that are like an Alec, they want to take away your own retirement, and they're pushing for Congress to take away your Social Security. So you're left with this.
Yeah.
Your one stool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which they want you to stick it up your butt, which is your savings. But then since you're paying for your own health care, and your wages are going down, it goes lower and lower and lower. So generations like my grandfather, who retired in the 70s or the 80s, they had that three-legged stool, and a lot of them were veterans. So they also had Medicare, they had Social Security, they had VA benefits. When people who are my age, in their 20s or 30s, when we retire, chances are we're left with none of that. At least if things keep going the way they're going.
And this is the point. The point is the young people have to understand that it doesn't have to be this way. That's what they have to understand. It doesn't have to be this way. When somebody tells you Social Security isn't going to be there for you, you tell them, baloney. It's going to be there because I'm going to vote for the people that make sure it's there for me. Anytime you have a group like the Republicans that are really anti-intellectual, you know they're pulling something, because as Paulo Freire said in The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, again, is that dialogue is how you fight the oppressor. You have to have dialogue. Education is dialogue. Education isn't somebody just pushing things at you. And so as long as there's no place for dialogue, no place for real discussion, there's going to be no solutions. And
that's what we're trying to have here, is a dialogue where we can present another side of the argument to the public, instead of having someone scream their opinion at you on the radio
Yeah.
And if someone else from the other side calls in with a difference of opinion, you're either never let through on the line, or you're shouted down. You know,
Yeah.
if you listen to your Charlie Sykes or your Mark Bellings or your Vicky McCormick's, or
Yeah.
even the ones they pipe in from elsewhere, you know, the Glenn Beck radio show, which not yet, but at least the Rush Limbaugh shows.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to get in Milwaukee. If you want news, which these aren't news, this is right-wing talk radio.
Yeah.
And they scream their opinions at you. And that's not a dialogue.
No.
You know, these are not news personalities. These are right-wing ideologues
Sure.
presenting their
And
opinions.
and if you look at it, you look at the Bradley Foundation. This is again the Bradley Foundation. The chair of the Bradley Foundation is also the chair of Scott Walker's election committee. You know, the Bradley Foundation funds all of these very, very conservative things. All of the things about the vouchers. They give money to Charlie Sykes. You know, it's because these people know how to form opinions. The fairness doctrine. Let's go back to the fairness doctrine. That was in 1947, 48. After World War II, the U.S. government said, "Wait a minute. We saw what happened in Germany, where they had propaganda radio just pounding against certain people being evil, and they just formed the whole sort of personality of a nation to be as evil as it was." So the fairness doctrine said, well, none of the TV stations, none of the stations, or none of the radio outlets that can have, if they have a political interview, a political point of view on their program, they have to then have equal time to an alternate point of view. That was in place until the Reagan administration. And the minute the fairness doctrine was done away with, that very same year, Rush Limbaugh's show went national.
And since then you had an explosion.
And it had an explosion
right-wing
of this,
media.
right-wing media.
At least on the radio.
On the radio, and then later on, Fox News, which is the ultimate. It's the ultimate 1984 sort of thing in terms of newspeak. I mean, they call themselves fair and balanced because they're not fair and balanced.
Right.
But you take people in my generation and older who grew up where you could honestly trust Huntley and Brinkley and people like that, they see these people on Fox News who look like the regular news readers, and they believe them because they've grown up in an environment where you believe what you hear on TV. You know, and so by them saying they're fair and balanced, what they're really saying to their audience, which incidentally gets older every year, they're saying to that audience is, yeah, see, we're the alternative to the liberal media. There is no liberal media. There's a corporate media. And the corporate media is conservative and ultra-conservative. You know, and that's just how things are right now.
And I talk to my grandparents on the phone in Florida, and I can hear Fox News rolling in the background. And I implore them, please turn off Fox News.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because it's just lies. It's nothing
Yeah.
but one-sided lies. I mean, it's probably. I will admit, MSNBC is almost as far left as Fox News is right. But there has to be a yin and a yang. But there's no reason why we have to deal with that in at least in the Milwaukee area, on the radio level.
No.
You know, I mean, you have to look for alternative sources, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to Sykes and Belling, you know, blast their opinions and lies in your ear all day after the Brewer game or on the way to work, we're trying to present a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing here today. So I want to thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Roberts.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll
that's
have you
good.
again.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Once again, this is Jason Lawrence with Grassroots TV, and I hope you join us next time as we expose the truth behind all things political in this state of Wisconsin.